do what I wanna, innovate what I'm gonna. You can hate all you wanna, but you sold your pajama. Now I ain't a prima donna, but I built what I wanna. You can say my vision's wrong, the tune of my song. Broke my thumb, bang it to my own drum. Broke my thumb, bang it to my own drum. Broke my thumb, bang it to my own drum. Hootin' and clapping, boots I am a strapping. A click, click, clacking, hurrah! Bootstrapping in America. Yeah, bootstrapping in America.
Christy, we're back. Bootstrapping in America.
We are back. I'm Christy Ross. With me is Tony Batista, and we're on Bootstrapping in America, where we interview some of the hottest entrepreneurs in Chicago and beyond. Our guests today are the founders of FinTank, which is the new fintech hub in Chicago, which facilitates innovation in companies of any size. Their mission is to establish Chicago as the fintech capital of the world and connect, collaborate, educate, incubate, and innovate. Please welcome George Vukotich and David Carman. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Christy.
Thanks, Christy.
Yeah, so I always refer to Chicago as the derivatives capital of the world, so let's make it the fintech capital of the world, right?
There you go.
Very good.
Yeah, we should. We've got all the resources here. Why not?
Go.
Why
there
not?
You go. So let's start by having each of you tell a little bit about yourself and ultimately what led you to start FinTank. And George, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So we were looking around, and I was previously at 1871, spent a couple of years there and helped build it, put in 500 mentors, put in about 400 different workshops, working with the companies, a lot of good things there. And then started looking and say, it's good to have a lot of companies, but how do we work with a smaller group and be more successful? So then the next question is, what do you look at? Matter had already come up with healthcare, 2112, music and entertainment, M-Hub was in the works, but we didn't have a financial or fintech kind of an incubator. And it's like Chicago should have a fintech incubator. So started to talk to a lot of people, looked around. Some people had big grand plans. I talked to a lot of people in the process. And then in the end, finally just got this small group together and said, what the hell, let's just start this, see where it goes. And if the big guys want to get involved, that'll be great too. So we just basically started it. And so that's how we got into what we're doing today.
So one of the things, though, with you is I'm going to go back further than 1871 for a second, because you were in the Air Force. Right.
Yes, for
You've
time,
also
yeah,
worked
yeah.
for large organizations like IBM and Accenture,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how have some of that history and some of that background and experience helped you in getting FinTank off the ground?
Boy, well, I think so this is a radical statement, but I think everybody should go to the military just to learn the discipline and get the habits
We're
in place.
sending Tom.
At least a couple of years, at least 2
gotta
years
feel
worth of the
it.
military in exchange for free education. But this isn't a political show. So, no, I think the military gives you a lot of discipline, gets you organized. I think corporate America is good in a lot of ways because it shows you structure and opportunity, but then you also see where the issues are. I remember working for IBM, and when we bring in subcontractors, we'd have to charge an extra $28 an hour just to break even. So just a lot of it was inefficiency, unorganized, and I think a lot of times big corporations are more worried about failure than coming up with the next success. They don't want to hurt their reputation. So that opens the door for startups trying to make things happen. So that's the corporate background. What you didn't mention, I've also been the dean of a college of business.
That's right.
And so in that process as well, one of the areas of most interest where I felt people would benefit was in the area of entrepreneurship and being entrepreneurial. But quite often, schools just teach you the theory and the education. So it's great to see that the incubators, accelerators, and those things have come about in the last 10 years. It's good to see the energy and the activity. So it makes a big difference. So I'm glad we're doing things today.
And with that whole history of yours, you've written a few books too. And David, we're going to get to you. We're going to get to you. George has just got a long history here.
So I have, and thank you for the opportunity. The most recent one is called Mentoring Startups. So thanks for the opportunity to put in a plug. Mentoring Startups is different than mentoring in a corporate environment. And one of the reasons I wrote the book was that I was working with startups. I would have a lot of people from larger corporations come to me and say, hey, George, can I be a mentor? And I had to sit back and say, well, it's not like mentoring in a big corporation. In a big corporation, it's about, helping people get their next position. In a corporate environment, startup world is totally different. So there were a lot of disconnects with people, again, who may have been great mentors in big corporations. I remember one person, so George, I mentored 32 people, and I won't say the name of the corporation. I'm like, how can you mentor 32 people effectively at one time?
Totally agree.
But it's very structured, very scripted. In a startup world, working with startups, nothing is scripted. It's all figuring it out, trying to make it happen. So that's how that book came about, Mentoring Startups, and we've used a lot of that in what we're doing today and working with the companies today.
That's great. Yeah. So David, you have a political science education, right?
I majored in political science.
There you go.
Yes.
And you were a trader on the floor for 19 years.
Yes.
and then you started your own company. So talk a little bit about some of that, and if you know Tony Batista.
He was an equity trader. We were an index trader.
I just want to say what a thrill it is to meet Tony in person here.
Oh, thank you.
Tony was a legend at the CBOA.
You see that? Now this show goes for an hour and 45 minutes longer. Now that you said that, we're going to talk all about you.
And he'll pay you later.
And also, Tony taught Tom everything he knows about how to trade stock options.
I knew I liked David. I remember him from the floor. He was wonderful.
That's right. When I traded, I was on the floor for 19 years, and then I left the floor, and then just looking around for something to do. And I got involved what's called, at the time it was called the Breakfast Network Club, BNC, and I took it over in 2005 and changed the name to Business Network Chicago, and just started running all these different groups, finance, healthcare, international groups, so on and so forth. And then I figured, I'll start a venture capital group, we'll see what happens. And so after a few months, the entrepreneurs start coming up to me and go, we still need to raise capital. Can you help me? And I go, no, I know nothing about this, But I thought it over for maybe about 9 months, and I thought, well, this looks really interesting because you see all these cool ideas come in. Most aren't going to make it, but they're really interesting ideas. And eventually I closed the other groups. It was kind of like for-profit philanthropy and just focused on the BNC Venture Capital Group. So we've been doing that since 2006, so it's about 11 years. And every month we have 3 startups, early-stage companies come in and pitch. We like them to have some traction. And we're agnostic. We'll take a look at anything. Then I've done 2 failed startups. One was on trying to come up with a software that would automatically connect people. Like you go to a conference, how do I match up? As opposed to stumble upon. It's very inefficient, I think. But our software was just mediocre. And then I had what's called Black Line Review. The site's still up. We were going to cover the startup ecosystem. So I was the venture critic. My job was to find what I thought were promising startups here in Chicago and then be like a movie critic and give them so many stars. And so the VC says, this is really good, blah, 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 but they weren't going to pay for it. So that one didn't work either. So at the end of last year, I'm on the internet and I see, this new FinTech hub is opening up in Chicago, near DePaul. I go, interesting. And I had been doing some reading about FinTech. And the more I get into it, it sounds like it's just financial technology. It sounds like a very small vertical. But all these sectors, artificial intelligence, blockchain, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, all of them, these are really big markets. All of them. Some of them I think are going to be trillion-dollar markets. And I just think it's a really red-hot, exciting space. And I figured I'll give it a shot. Met George. One thing about George, too, he has a PhD in organizational development. And that's, if you look at his career, that's what he does. He helps to build organizations. So, and if you look at his experience as being the program director at 1871 and helping grow that, I think he's in the perfect spot.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. I'll pay you later.
Yeah, we got a lot of money floating around here today,
And
right?
I get paid a lot to compliment people.
Yes. And you're very good at it.
But David, I think you're actually spot on, because when you look at FinTech, you got payments and insurance, you got banking, you got trading, you have all of these different things on top of everything that you said. It is a wide funnel, right? So the one thing that I'm curious what both of your opinions are on is you look at financial services over the last few decades alone, right? It's a very siloed industry and historically has been. Versus you look at even the past 5 years in Chicago in just technology, and it's just amazing because of the collaboration and the collisions at 1871, and it really has spurred, I'm going to say, like this explosion, right, within the Chicago ecosystem. But financial services, again, historically siloed. What do you think some of those barriers are, and how are we going to break past them? I know FinTank is one of the answers.
Thank you.
But tell me what it is that really, you'll do.
It's not just blockchain technology or artificial intelligence. We even have virtual reality group. It's like, how do you take those technologies and apply them to the business marketplace that's making a difference? And financial services actually happens to be leading in a lot of those. So I think a lot of what will be learned and what we're doing with blockchain and financial services applicable to a number of other areas, whether it be healthcare, manufacturing, logistics. So technology is the big driver. And I think what we did early on is we said, how are we going to help change or build an ecosystem here? How are we going to build a community? Because that's that's what our focus is. We said, we got to start with awareness. Educate people, make them aware of what is blockchain, how does it work, educate them on the process, how do you use blockchain, and then the next step is get companies to build around that and leverage the technology. So we've been incredibly successful with some of the different areas. Blockchain, for example, it's just boomed. We have monthly meetups. We have over 200 people. The numbers are just incredible. And now we're in the education phase, but we want to keep moving that to productivity. So how do people take the concepts, the ideas, the education, and turn it into profitable businesses? And that's what we think we can help make a difference with. So.
Sure.
Well, I think what George said, technology is the driver. And what's really exciting to me about FinTech is so many of these technologies are not just applicable to the financial service industry. I mean, what industry is not going to be affected by AI? Mm-hmm. Who knows what these computers are going to... They're saying like by the year 2040 or 2050, everybody's going to have their own personal robot.
Sure. Or self-driving cars, right? I mean, it's here today. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, or you look at blockchain. Right now on a commercial scale, it's only been successful with the cryptocurrencies, but very surely you're going to see it applied on a commercial scale, I think, to other industries. So, and also if you look at like banking, you have Facebook and Google taking a look at this. What do they know about banking? Not really, but what do they know about technology, which is driving everything? They're at the top of the food chain. So I don't think they want to become a bank and deal with all that stringent regulation, but I think they'll be on the outer perimeter and go as far as they can without having to be registered as a bank. Yeah. And the banks better be paying attention because they're much better at technology and innovation than the banks are.
Sure, I totally agree with that. And I think too, one of the things that you need in financial services and blockchain, you guys are spot on. It's hitting so many different industries and it's going to affect it dramatically. But because financial services has so much legacy technology, and because it is and has to be interconnected, right? It is something that you sort of need everybody coming together to truly collaborate to make this happen.
Well, that's a great point, and it's why the major trend now is for the Fortune 500 companies and other enterprise-level companies to start partnering with the startups. Mm-hmm. Because if you look, if you work at a major corporation and you have a legacy IT system, and you're the one who says, you know what, I think we should do away with it and try this, and if you're wrong, guess who's going to get fired? It's just very risky to do. And if you're successful in making a lot of money, it's much more difficult to give it up.
It's hard to disrupt your own business model, right?
Yeah.
All the revenue that comes from that, the clearing. I've said this a number of times, but you look at the trading T+3, right? It's now moved to T+2. So what? It's moved one day, right? But still, there's a lot of money still to be made in those couple days of settlement, right?
Yeah.
In the cash and holding on to the cash. So, but anyway, so one of the things that I did see is that you guys have really focused on blockchain and cybersecurity specifically. Like when I look at the focuses, what other areas are you going to be expanding into? And are you going beyond Chicago, or is this Chicago based?
So we're starting in Chicago because we want to help build Chicago. The way we put it is we're helping build Chicago in order to prepare to take over the world.
I love that.
That's
like my
Start from
motto.
the inside, working your way out.
Yeah, we're going to make a difference. But no, we've got a lot of areas of interest. We said, and blockchain just happens to be the one. We work on a concept called communities of practice. And it's not what George wants or what Dave wants. It's where can we find people that want to make a difference and then find people to lead our different groups. So right now, everybody at FinTank is a volunteer so far. We haven't gotten any big money from the government or big corporations yet. They eventually we will. But right now, everybody's a volunteer. So what we try to do with this community of practice concept is find people who are interested. And we've got very good people in everything from the blockchain that Dave mentioned, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, virtual reality. So we have technicians running these. We're pairing them up with people that can organize groups and meet up groups and organize and make things happen. And so that's been a big difference for us. We've actually been approached. We've got a big event coming up next week around blockchain. We've got people coming in from around the world. And now people are approaching us. South Africa approached people and said, can you do an event for us in South Africa? We just signed up a company out of Ireland to help them with their fundraising. So we're starting here, but word gets out, and I think that's a nice thing about our ecosystem. If you do something good, people come to you and want to help build. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think you have, like George mentioned, you got artificial intelligence, big data analytics, blockchain. Who's not interested in cybersecurity? If you have a password, right?
Sure.
If you have money at any financial institution, bank, whatever, that's a question. If they get hacked and they take your money, does the bank give you back your money? I've talked to J.P. Morgan. Not necessarily. Right. And then you have IoT, Internet of Things. So even with IoT, you have these sensors on these devices. They collect the information. What are you going to do with it? You need data analytics to analyze it. You need AI to help go through all that data. So those 5 technologies, I think, are very incestuous. And then you got trading technology, payments, lending, insurtech, regtech. We break it down into about 12 sectors. Forbes breaks it down into 15 sectors. Boston Consulting Group breaks it down into 7 sectors. It's up to you. But they're all kind of overlapping one another, one way or the other.
Sure. So you talk about this event next week. Who are some of your speakers that you're bringing in?
It's a great event. So we talked, and we have a lot of, in our monthly seminars on blockchain, we've had good follow-up with people. And we said, how about if we do a day-long event? What would it look like, how we can put it together? So we went out to Google and benchmarked like 30 different events around the world. And we looked at all of them and we said, we can do better than that. So we just started reaching out. And as a result, we started reaching out, telling our story, what we wanted to do. So some of the big names, IBM, Microsoft, Accenture, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young. Northern Trust locally. Securities Exchange Commission's flying a person in from Washington.
State of Illinois.
State of Illinois. It goes on and on. So that's the big companies. We've also got a lot of innovative startups. Digital Mint, which I think has been on your show. La Platforma, she's Teresa Flippin. She has a program where they do blockchain to do payment remittance out of Chile, between the U.S. and Chile. So we've got some very interesting startups. We've got the big companies, law firms, of course, and just educators. So we've got the University of Chicago, Northwestern, DePaul, Purdue. So you name it. So what today is meant to be, it's meant to be a lot of quick hit, a lot of action, a lot of overview information for individuals so they can take it and build on it. And it's been great.
Putting the pieces together.
We're putting the pieces together, yes, sir.
When did you guys start? When did you launch?
Officially in January. We'd been
Okay.
talking to people for about a year, but we put a stake in the ground and got a few companies to move into our space in January, and we've been picking up traction since then.
I read that you have over 100,000 professionals already in your membership. Is that right? Did I read that right?
Sign up for our newsletter.
Yeah,
So they're
got
not
it.
all
Okay.
members
Okay,
yet.
got it.
Yeah. So what we've been doing, so here's another area we've been working on. So we've got some members, and we said, if you got to be part of an organization, you want to be a member, how do you get some member benefits? So we've reached out, and some of our sponsor firms, Polsinelli, for example, will do your corporate setup at no charge. We've got an accounting firm that'll help you set up on QuickBooks, no charge. Silicon Valley Bank, banking, Amazon Web Services, give you a couple. So we're at the stage we're in right now, and I'll put this out there for any organizations. We're trying to build our member benefits package. Once we get this in place, we'll do a bigger membership drive to bring members in. And the idea being that everybody should want to be a member because of the benefits they get. And I will say, we've actually worked with a couple of our companies one-off, and we've gotten one company with what they're working on, $360,000 in Microsoft credits. So I think that's how we can work with the companies one-on-one, being a good group of people together, and then help them get benefits that other people offer.
Sure.
And they're also getting free data from Morningstar and Barchart.
Barchart's been a great partner as well. So yeah, and they just, well, not to put a plug in for them, but since they help us, why not help them? They just started this month doing live or real streaming of cryptocurrency exchange data. We happen to have a company in our accelerator which is using a pilot to take their data and put it into use in the product they're building. So it's a great ecosystem when you can bring these people together. I almost feel like we're a dating service, just bringing the right people together to make things happen. But it's good.
Yeah,
It's good.
that's great.
Yeah.
So is this a non-for-profit or a for-profit?
So we have two sides.
Good question.
Yeah, we have two sides. So what we did early on, we said we weren't sure. We just formed it as an LLC just to get going because it was quick, easy, cheap. And then as time went on, we started to talk to larger organizations, and a lot of them indicated an interest, but they wanted us to be a 501c3. So again, a plug for Polsinelli. They're working with us to get the non-for-profit side set up. And then we also have a for-profit because we're not only just an incubator and a hub, we have an accelerator model as well, where we work with companies, and our acceleration program's a little different because we work with them over the course of a year. So it's not that intense 90 days pounded into you, and half of it's on how to get pitch. Well, we want our companies to be productive, so we do it over a course of a year, and to work with those companies, we take a little bit of equity, so that's the for-profit side. So we have both the non-for-profit, and anybody who wants to work with us on that side, just so our programs like Women in FinTech, Students in FinTech, FinVets, those are programs we have that are on the non-for-profit side, and then companies that actually want to start and build and be successful, and that's on the for-profit side. We think it's got to be a good combination of both.
Right, and that's important to have that distinction because there are a lot of people that go, wait, this is for-profit, I don't want anything to do with it, right? But but the distinction between the two totally makes sense, and how you've broken that out. So cool. So One last question to wrap this up for each of you, and especially looking at sort of both of your backgrounds and being close to startups and entrepreneurs. What is one piece of advice you'd give to a startup if they're thinking about starting a company?
I'll give you my perspective. Take your idea, be willing to work very damn hard because it doesn't come easy, but also listen to what's going on around you. So you got to be willing to work. It's not, forget that balance of life crap that people tell you about. If you're in a startup, you got to just work, but you also got to be observant and listen to people around you that are giving you guidance and direction. That's my take on it.
That's good advice. David?
Find some sharp mentors to talk to about your idea and do some market research. I think a lot of times the entrepreneur falls in love with his idea or his product. I know, like when they come and pitch, I go, okay, you got a lot of nice gizmos, but who? Well, the number one question I want to ask an entrepreneur is, what key influencers are interested in your company? Do you have any customers, strategic business partners? Have you raised any money from anybody? Not your mother-in-law. Nice that she likes your company, but that's what we're looking for. So, and if nobody's interested in your company, that tells me one of two things. Either your product and management team are not that good, right? Or you guys are really bad at sales, which does not augur well for the future success of your company.
Either one stinks, right?
Right. So if I say to you, I'm not going to, I tell him, I'm not going to tell you anything. Oh, we were coaching a guy a number of years ago, and he had a bunch of chemicals to clean your car. And we had coached him, we were done with the 2-hour session, and then I go, is there anything else you could tell us about, and this guy had been a CMO in corporate America. I go, is there anything else you could tell us about your company that would be relevant to your pitch? He goes, well, I don't know if this is relevant, but Dale Earnhardt uses our products. Michael Jordan uses our basketball, or wears our basketball shorts. I go, dude, can you get Dale at the pitch? And he goes, maybe if I pay him $25,000. And I go, this may sound cheesy, could you get hold of a life-size cardboard cutout of him? We'll put that at the head of the room. Not as effective, but it'll do the trick. So, and you got to jostle their memory. Who have you been talking to who has influence? And because when you hire a babysitter, you want a referral, right?
Sure.
Somebody you trust gives the USD and stamp of approval. I like this company. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are also time scared somebody's going to steal their idea. The far bigger risk is you're not going to talk to enough people and really vet your idea. Because I've never seen anybody steal an idea yet. It rarely happens. Mm-hmm. So
it's taking action that matters. It's executing.
And talk to people.
There's a million ideas.
Yes. And be coachable. Because Steve Jobs got fired, and he was a pretty good entrepreneur, but he wouldn't listen. He got fired from his own company.
He did pretty well for himself, though.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, you guys. I want to wish you the best of luck with FinTank.
Thanks,
guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate your time. We'll take a quick 90-second break. We're going to come back. Where do I start? Graduate school next with Brittany, followed by Liz and Jenny. Let's Taste Trade Live.